Have you ever looked inside a gadget, a telly, a phone, even your toaster? You'll see these green boards covered in tiny lines and shiny bits. Those are printed circuit boards, or PCBs. They are the absolute bedrock of modern electronics. Think of them as a city map for electricity. Instead of roads, they have tiny copper tracks. These tracks guide the power and signals to all the different components, telling them what to do and when. Without PCBs, all those components would be a chaotic mess of wires. It would be like trying to build a city without streets. These boards bring order to that chaos, making everything neat, compact, and reliable. So, how does one of these electronic city maps come to be? It all starts in the digital world, inside a computer. This is the design phase, and it's where all the magic begins. Engineers and designers use special software, a bit like a superpowered drawing program. These are called EDA tools, which stands for Electronic Design Automation. Popular ones have names like Altium Designer, Eagle, or KiCad. The designer starts by creating a schematic. This is like a theoretical diagram, showing which electronic components like resistors, capacitors, and chips are needed and how they connect to each other logically. It's the master plan. Once the schematic is perfect, the real fun begins: layout. The designer takes that schematic and starts arranging the digital footprints of the components onto a virtual board. This is a puzzle of epic proportions. They have to place every part in the best possible spot. They then draw the copper tracks, or traces, that connect them all. It's not just about connecting A to B, they have to think about how long the tracks are, how close they are to each other, and how to avoid electrical noise. It's a delicate dance of physics and spatial reasoning, all done on a screen. Getting this right is crucial for the gadget to work properly. The result of all this digital craftsmanship is a set of design files. The most important one is called a Gerber file. I love that name. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi film. This file is the definitive blueprint for the PCB. It contains all the information needed for manufacturing, the copper layers, the drill holes, the text, everything. It's a complete set of instructions that a factory can follow precisely. Every single line, dot, and pad on the final board is detailed in these files. With the blueprint complete, we're ready to leave the digital world and start making something real. And that, my friends, is where things get messy and brilliant. Now we have our Gerber files, our digital blueprint. How do we get that intricate design onto a physical board? We start with the raw material, a simple board made of a non-conductive substrate, usually a fiberglass material called FR4. This board is completely laminated on one or both sides with a thin sheet of copper. It's basically a copper sandwich. Our first job is to transfer the design from the Gerber file onto this copper. This is done using a process called photolithography. It's a fancy word, but the idea is quite simple. It's like developing a photograph, but for electronics. First, the copper-clad board is cleaned meticulously. Any speck of dust or grease could ruin the final product. Then, it's coated with a light-sensitive layer of material called a photoresist. Think of it as a special kind of paint that reacts to ultraviolet light. Next, we take our design from the Gerber file and print it onto a transparent film, creating a mask. This mask is like a stencil. Where we want copper to remain, the mask is clear, and where we want to remove copper, it's black. This mask is placed directly on top of the photoresist-coated board. The board and mask sandwich is then blasted with high-intensity ultraviolet light. Everywhere the light shines through the clear parts of the mask, it hits the photoresist and causes a chemical change. It hardens the resist, making it tough and durable. The areas of the photoresist that were protected by the black parts of the mask remain soft and unchanged. After the ultraviolet exposure, the board is washed in a developing solution. This chemical bath washes away only the unhardened photoresist, leaving behind the hardened bits that now perfectly match the pattern of our copper tracks. Now we get to the really cool part: etching. The board, with its hardened photoresist pattern protecting the copper we want to keep, is dunked into an etching solution. This is usually a powerful chemical, like ferric chloride. This solution eats away at any copper that isn't protected by the photoresist. It's a subtractive process. We're removing everything we don't need. Slowly but surely, the unwanted copper dissolves, leaving behind only the delicate network of copper tracks and pads that perfectly match our original design. After a final wash to remove the etchant and the remaining photoresist, we have our basic circuit board. It's a thing of beauty. Our board has its copper tracks, but it's still missing some crucial features. Most components need to be connected through the board, not just on its surface. This is where drilling comes in. A computer-controlled drilling machine, guided by another of our Gerber files, drills thousands of holes with incredible precision. These holes, called vias and component mounting holes, can be astonishingly small. The machine uses high-speed drills to punch through the board exactly where needed. It's a noisy, fast, and amazingly accurate process. Each hole is a future pathway for electricity or a home for a component leg. Drilling holes is one thing, but making them conductive is another. For multi-layered boards, we need to connect the copper tracks on different layers. This is done through a process called plating. After drilling, the entire board, including the inside of the newly drilled holes, is coated with a microscopically thin layer of copper. This is typically done through an electroplating process. The board is submerged in another chemical bath, and an electric current is used to deposit copper onto every surface. This creates a conductive barrel inside each hole, linking the copper layers together. It's like building tiny copper tunnels through the board. With the core structure in place, it's time to protect it. Copper is great, but it oxidizes. It rusts when exposed to air, which makes it difficult to solder to. To prevent this, and to stop solder from accidentally bridging connections later, we apply the solder mask. This is that classic green coating you see on most PCBs. The board is covered with this epoxy-based ink, and then we use another round of photolithography. A mask is used to expose only the areas we want to keep clear, the pads where components will be soldered. The rest of the board is covered by the hardened green mask, protecting the tracks from damage and short circuits. The final touch before we add the parts is the silkscreen. This is the text and symbols you see printed on the board. It's like the road signs for our electronic city. The silkscreen layer indicates which component goes where, its orientation, and might include the product name or version number. It's incredibly helpful for anyone assembling or repairing the board. This is usually applied using a method similar to screen printing a t-shirt. A special ink is pushed through a stencil onto the board's surface. Now the bare board is complete, fully prepped and ready for its components. It's a pristine canvas, waiting for the final act of creation. The bare board is a work of art, but it can't do anything on its own. It needs its components. This is the assembly stage. For mass production, this is a highly automated process. A machine called a pick-and-place machine is the star of the show. It's a robotic arm that moves with lightning speed and precision. It picks up tiny components, resistors, capacitors, integrated circuits, from reels and trays and places them onto their designated pads on the board. A sticky substance called solder paste, which was applied to the pads earlier, holds the components in place temporarily. This machine can place thousands of components per hour, something no human could ever match. Once all the surface mount components are in place, the board needs to go through an oven. This isn't your kitchen oven though, it's a special reflow oven. The board moves along a conveyor belt through several zones with carefully controlled temperatures. The heat melts the solder paste, which is a mixture of tiny solder balls and flux. As it melts, the solder flows and creates a perfect, permanent electrical and mechanical connection between the component and the pad. As the board cools, the solder solidifies. It's a beautifully orchestrated process that solders hundreds of connections at once. It's the moment the board truly starts to become a functional circuit. After reflow soldering, some larger components or those with long legs that go through the board might be added by hand or by another process called wave soldering. Then comes the most critical step: testing. Quality control is everything. A board might look perfect but have a hidden flaw. The first check is often automated optical inspection. A machine with high-resolution cameras scans the board, comparing it to the design files. It checks for missing components, incorrect placement, or bad solder joints. It's a fast and effective way to catch manufacturing errors before they cause bigger problems down the line. The final test is a functional test. The board is powered up, and its actual electrical performance is checked. This is the moment of truth. Specialized test rigs with probes, called a bed of nails, connect to key points on the circuit. They send signals and measure the responses to ensure everything is working exactly as the designers intended. Only after passing these rigorous tests is the PCB considered complete. It's now ready to be installed in a phone, a computer, or a satellite. This humble green board, born from a digital design, is the unsung hero that powers our entire modern world, a testament to incredible precision and ingenuity.